with the chip shortages, realistically, the industry is seeing that there is a shortage because of COVID, because of all the silicone manufacturing and the IC manufacturing across the world has declined because of COVID. And the priority of getting the chips and the silicone is not going to fall in the automotive market. It's going to fall in the consumer market and communication market. So therefore, the volumes are going to decrease and going to affect the efficiencies within the automotive OEM tiers. With that, the whole philosophy is we can come in, we can look at your software development processes. We can go back into the development areas and see if we can create efficiencies, help you with the automated tools, help you with your processes. So the inefficiencies that you're going to see from COVID, maybe we can come in and help you address some inefficiencies to get a positive feedback, so you're not getting such a negative hit from COVID and the volume decreases. When the volume of chips and how they're dispersed amongst the industries, it's going to always fall on the industries that takes the most volume. Consumer industry takes 10x of what automotive would take. Communication takes 15x of what automotive would take. So with communications and consumer industry, that's where your shortage is going to fall with automotive. And that's where it's inevitable of the buying power. It's a buying power issue in volume. What we've done with the tools is, with a full tool chain, we can make efficiencies in your development process of 10x. So let's say if your volume is falling short and you're going to miss your Wall Street reporting of $1 million at the end of 2021, if you implement a process that increases your efficiencies, you can capture that 10x in your development. And if your development is $100 million, you're saving $1 million right there, and it's a wash for COVID effects. So basically, what we've seen from the industry and from the underlying invisible problem and invisible issue is the shortages that COVID's going to cause to the industries, in particular to the automotive industry. There's been reports coming out saying that the semiconductor industry is going to affect the automotive industry by having shortages across the globe, and those issues are going to affect every industry. But the priority of the industries is always going to affect the industries that take the most volume. And those volumes, as it's shown in multiple reports, is going to be the consumer industry and the communication industry, leaving the automotive industry short and lacking parts. Recalls. I want to tie this three together, actually. This might be a long one.
Sure, that's cool too.
Because when you look at the recalls and you look at we've seen across the board, the largest recalls come out with the Takata industry and airbags and et cetera, et cetera. But now we're starting to see some of the newer products, as in Tesla's getting their first recall of 100,000 vehicles because of a design flaw and the capabilities of what the actual component will do during the design. They extended the capabilities of an IC and the ROM, and which causes a recall. And the issue of the recall is getting over-the-air updates, OTAs, on a daily basis, when OTAs were basically designed to do on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. The technology was a concept that was due to minimal times, not maximum. And that's the reason for the Tesla recall. And as we talk about recalls, it's evident, and the recalls always fall down into Wall Street. And as nobody wants to have a recall. And my normal sarcasm is, you're fine until you get caught. You never have an issue until you get caught. Nobody cares. Well, when you get caught, as human empathy, if you show that you've done the right processes and use the right tools and the right mechanisms, that you get forgiven a lot easier than if you basically throw your hands up in the air and say, yep, we have an issue. We should have done better. But if you didn't show that you've done your homework up front, you're going to get a bad grade. And that's how Wall Street's going to take effect. You'd never want to be first to market with a recall. An article by Shannon Rodell from the Notre Dame News is a phenomenal article written on the 18th of January about how it is stated that you never want to be first to market when you're doing a recall. You want to be last to market. And the effects that you have for doing this is how Wall Street's going to affect, or how Wall Street extrapolates your issues. In regards to Tesla getting a recall, they get a recall, their stock generally does not get affected. But if Ford has a recall, Ford's stock typically falls 15 to 20% after a recall notice. General Motors, same. There's not fairness in regards to how recalls are handled when they're handled to Wall Street. But when it comes to consumer ratings and how it's handled, consumer just wants their vehicles to work. They want their product to work. So in that regards, people in OEMs and tier ones, it's hard to use the word hide. It's more along drag their feet in regards to issues until there is a mass recall notice that's the media actually picks up on. The media is actually the organization that drives whether a recall is going to be a hit to Wall Street or to the consumer. Once the media finds out there's a recall, then Wall Street's affected. And what you see, and it's captured perfectly in her article, is other companies will come in and snowball behind that recall because the media only takes the first recall and ignores everything after that. Honestly, this is fun. This isn't funny. I'll give you a side note. I can't even tell you. You can't even tell me who has the last Takata airbag recall. Yeah, you can't.
No, we only know that it was Toyota or whatever, right? And I know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. But every OEM's had it recalled.
Yeah, because I know my parents drive a Honda. They definitely had the recall like twice or whatever it was, because they get it a couple times.
But you don't know because of the press.
Yeah, it even says here, right? It even says here the study states on August 21st, 2017, how they had the recall, but then was quickly followed in subsequent days by a fuel tank recall from Honda and an oil hose recall from Chrysler.
Yeah. There's a company in Israel, Aurora Labs, that they are doing perception and trying to get an understanding of how to forecast a product failure, similar to what you see in tires and brakes, etc. You don't wait for your tire to blow before you get new tires. You don't wait till your brakes give out before you get new brakes. Aurora Labs has the concept and philosophy that you don't wait for your software to fail before you have a recall on it. So in that regards, they want to do away with recalls and eliminate recalls because you're getting it fixed prior to getting it recalled. These are the type of companies similar to V-Cubed that care and understand about trying to address consumer needs before the products get to market. And even as we see now, a majority of the media has fallen on political issues and worldwide issues and disease issues, and have ignored the real issues that the consumers are more concerned about. You see a lot of press in the automotive industry and in a lot of industries, I should say, to go green. The issue is to push to go green. It's go green, go green, go green, save the planet. But no one is addressing push to go safer. No one's changing their processes and their development process to be safer. They're looking at metrics of how you're doing validation. They're not looking at how you're doing metrics of doing verification, which means you can test and test and test and test at the end to test quality into the product. Unless you design product into the verification and the actual development, you're still going to have issues, and you're going to still continue to have products and recalls in the future in every program, in every industry. So it's just an issue of one, you have to readdress or relook at your process and how you do development. Two, are you incorporating the right processes? Are you incorporating the right tools? Are you measuring the right KPIs to get you to where you want to be? Or are you an industry that wants to continue to just put miles on cars and test and not really have a prediction or a predictive analysis of where you're at? Prime example is our cover tool. As our cover tool sits there and sits on the compiler, it gives you a predictive analysis, understanding where you tested and where you didn't test, and gives you can do an understanding of where your risk assessments are in your program. And when you go out there, and it's a perfect report card. If you have a recall, you can go back and say, where was the cover tool? And you can see, hey, we didn't test this area. We deserve to have a recall. That type of mentality. It's the metrics and how you're going to start. You have to change the principles and mentalities to get different metrics, because your process is going to change. Your rules have changed. Therefore, your metrics have to change. There's a gentleman by the name of Phil Coltman. He's a professor at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, or Pennsylvania area. I'm not sure if it's Pittsburgh. But he has created, he put together a presentation called Automated Vehicle Safety Update for 2021. And it's a unique presentation. It's a unique view on autonomous safety and how things are moving forward, especially for 2021. With regards to, it's looking more at the human aspect of it versus the technical aspect of going autonomous. How the human role is going to change and adapt and move into the technical challenge going into autonomy. Different ways of looking at the different metrics. Phil references a safety performance indicator, which is an SPI, where you're looking at basically, is the vehicle safe? Is it not safe? Does it avoid crashes? Those are issues that are SPIs that we currently do. Is a vehicle safe and avoids crashes? We put miles and miles and miles on the road. But what we want to look at is the safety performance indicators at the lower level, down in the actual design. Was the software quality done? Do you have software quality SPIs? Did you test the coverage SPIs? How did you do a mechanical change? Did you have to clean the camera physically as a mechanical change? That's an SPI. These issues are characteristics and measurements that aren't currently being done, but we're doing it at a high level. And the basic philosophy has always been to do it at a high level, which I call validation, instead of doing it down at the lower level of the verification processes. With that, as I mentioned, as you determine and reevaluate your process, you need to look at where you need to capture these SPIs. And that's where VCube comes in, with test coverage and automated tools, all the way down into static analysis, into dynamic and unit level testing at a verification level, giving you coverage reports, seeing what's been missed and what hasn't been missed, and then moving that. And so you need to address the risk mitigation, where you need to do the most focus on your validation up at the vehicles level, where is the vehicle safe and avoids crashes. And with that, we have tools with the validation process that we have like ADAS Inspector, ADAS Simulator, that can help address and help you identify issues at a vehicle level. So B Cubed is a unique organization that can take you from the start of the V development in verification all the way into validation and with an ATIS inspector tool. One of the things that Aurora Labs has identified as an issue is when you're doing OTAs is how do you manage to get the ECUs to talk to each other? You may be able to do an OTA and update one ECU. You may be able to talk to one ECU and that ECU will update the other ECUs. But how do you know that they were updated properly and et cetera? How do you verify that the code was delivered properly, that you have your belt and suspenders check? We have a tool called the Prov tool, PROV tool, that actually goes in and makes sure there's no corruptions between ECU communications. And the benefit is basically proving that your OTA was successful. It's as simple as that. If you have an OTA failure in some situations and you have a corruption during the OTA, you can brick the car or the car turns non-functional. So that's catastrophic. If you take our probe tool and you incorporate it in the system, it will give you a snapshot and a correction. So you're going to have an understanding. If everything's good, what happens? Yeah, if I send code out to a car, it goes to the engine control module. It's received in the RF module. It's sent to the ECU and engine control module, and they may distribute some of that code to other areas, and they may write to all the others. But the thing is, you may get the code to the engine control module, but you don't know whether it was sent the information proper, whether it sent it at all. So you need to check the checksums to make sure everything's functioning and et cetera, and make sure there's no corruption and et cetera, to make sure all the ECUs are communicating friendly and talking so the system will operate as expected.
So like you're saying, then overall, all these steps are essentially avoiding or helping you to prevent being in the news.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. It keeps you from being a recall. Keeps you from being caught. It's preventable, and it boils back down into our article we did last year where the boss screaming at everybody, and the guy that was in the brick house isn't going to get touched. He made a brick house. He put the processes in place. He put together the best processes he thought were in place, put the best tools, the best employees, and created the best product he could possibly create. And he still failed. But everyone will forgive him because he tried and put forth the effort. And it goes back to our scale. If you're first to market with a product, you're applauded. But if you're first to market with a recall, you're crucified.
It's a pretty easy choice.
Yeah, it really is. Because again, my cynicism, the CEO that goes to first to market is going to get a huge bonus and move on to some other company. And the CEO that gets stuck with it is going to get fired and move to another company.
Maybe these things are unspoken, but people who are in this field and see this on a daily basis know that what Shannon's talking about, that's just the reality of the way things work.
Exactly. She wrote an article that we all knew that I'm applauding.
Yeah, right. Leading recalls, as she says here, leading recalls are associated with as high as a 67% larger stock market penalty than following recalls.
Yes. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. There's a vice president of quality for a large OEM. Him and I had drinks a couple years ago. And we were sitting here talking. He goes, Michael, does it ever scare you to watch people drive on 696, which is 4 lanes on both sides, 8 lanes at 75 to 80 miles an hour? And you know who designed these cars and what's wrong with them. I don't criticize or applaud CEOs running these large organizations because they're making the decisions that they have to meet the financial gains. But if they have to understand that if their failures are now turning criminal because CEOs are being sent to court and have to go in front of Congress and have lawyers defending the decisions that they made to make Wall Street look good.
Yeah.
Quality is everything unless cost is incurred. That's the number one slogan. We understand from this level what it takes to develop and create good process, good software, good product. But it takes financial. And nobody cares until you get caught. We all know it. We joke about it. You're laughing because
I know.
But we know it.
It's shocking. Yeah, it's shocking. And it's like, no, come on.
Why are we not appalled?
Right.
Your car cost you $35,000 to $50,000. Why are you not appalled in the quality of it?
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's like you said, people, it's hidden. You don't know because all you're doing is you just want to drive the car.
Yeah.
Whatever the reason is, the enjoyment of it, whatever the necessity, whatever, use to drive the car. You trust that it works because, like you said, nobody knows that they're not working.
Yeah. Because we put government agencies in place to tell us that it's safe, even though they don't know what's happening. They're sitting here trying to make educated decisions as politicians, which is scarier yet, of things that have been in place for 60, 70 years. With autonomous cars, you don't need mirrors anymore. What's the point? But the National Highway Transportation Safety System says you have to have a mirror here, you have to have a mirror here, and this one's 50-50. So you don't need any of those anymore. So they're trying to figure out how to address that. Why do you need a gas pedal? Why do you need a brake? As you go to level 4, and I'll send you the presentation to level 4, humans out of it, out of the picture. What do you need brakes, steering wheel? What do you need any of that for? But the thing is, this is what's killing me, Carl. They're trying to figure out what the they don't need, but not changing anything to get what they do need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like we said, the underlying issues are still there no matter what.
Yeah. You've changed the product, but you haven't changed the people or the process. How's that work in an equation? We all know the equation fails at that rate.